today's video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 tools that I use in my sewing room that do not come from a craft store or are craft related in any way. Let's get started. Hello everyone. Welcome to Pieces of the Past. My name is Deborah. I have a passion for fiber arts and creating new things from old. Join me on my journey as I explore the endless possibilities, the tools, and the techniques to create new pieces of the past. Okay, tool number one. The thing I use the most in my sewing room, and I have used this for years and years, is pegboard. I love pegboard. It is awesome. You can hang all kinds of things on it. You can use these hooks like this. See, that hook has a hole in it where you can stick your scissors or a screwdriver or whatever. This one is a hanger. You can hang it like that. And so I don't know if you can see that, but that's how it looks right there. And I have it all over the walls in my studio because I can hang my rulers, I can hang my scissors, I can hang anything that's got a hanger on it. It doesn't matter. And sometimes if it doesn't have a hanger on it, I drill a hole through it and hang it up. So that's how you do that with the pegboard. You can buy the pegboard in 4x8 sheets at your home improvement store. And then you can cut it to whatever size you want. On big walls, you put up the whole thing, you know, and then you fit it into small spaces. I've covered my entire studio in it a couple times. So when you go to use it though, one thing that I want to make sure that you know is to be sure to put wood strips or pieces of junk wood or whatever behind it when you're putting it on the wall. So say this green is the wall, and then I would put this board and then my pegboard, because you want to make sure that your little hooks here can go in and hang. If this is flat against the wall, then it won't go in the holes. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have something behind there when you hang it up. But yeah, you can get it for about $25 a sheet at your Home Depot, Lowe's, home improvement stores, all over the place. So that's tool number one. Okay, tool number two. I like to use a design wall or design boards to lay out my quilts and other things that I want to see how they're going to look before I sew them together. And so that would be my second favorite thing to use in the sewing room for my wall. I have a big enough space where I can put a board on the wall, but you can also use the design boards, and I'll show you that in just a second. These are great because especially if you're laying out a quilt, you can lay the quilt out without sewing it together, and you don't have to go lay it on your bed or find a flat space in your house on the carpet or something. You can put it up on the wall and step back and see what it looks like. So that's the awesomeness of using a design wall. Design walls are made out of insulation from your home improvement store. It's the narrow, it's about 1/4 of an inch thick insulation. You can see how thick that is. And you would put that on your wall, and then you would take batting or flannel, you can use flannel too, and you would put that over it and you would staple it down. Then to use it, say I'm making a quilt, I could say, oh, I like these. I'll turn the wheel this way, and we'll add some fishes like that. And then you can also, because it's on the wall and this insulation is 1/4 inch thick, you can pin to it if you need to. So say you're working with a heavy fabric or something, you can pin it up there so it doesn't fall off. But these usually stick. Anyway, see how it sticks to the batting? So that's awesome. A sheet of this insulation is going to be about $20 US dollars for a 4x8 sheet, and then your batting. The one thing I would tell you about the batting or the flannel is to use either white or black, because you don't want a red or a pink that would distort what you're looking at for your quilt or your piece that you're designing. You don't want those colors mixing, and that would just be odd. So use a white or a black one. And the other thing, if you don't have room for a design wall, for a 4-foot by 8-foot wall, then you can use these design boards instead. These are, I have these in another video. I show you how to make them. But in this case, what you would do, this is a large one. I use the large more than the smaller one. But what you would do is lay out your quilt on these, or your quilt blocks, okay? So I'd lay out my block on this one, and then on the next one, I lay out my block like so, okay? And then, I got a lot of fish today. Okay, let's stick that bird in there. Okay, so you'd lay out your blocks, and then you can put them together and see how they're gonna look side by side, that kind of thing. It's also nice to be able to take these to the sewing machine and sew your pieces together and keep them all together in blocks. So you can look at that video and see how to make these. They're real simple, super simple to make. You make them, I don't know where my piece is. Oh yeah, here it is. You make them out of this mat board instead of the foam insulation, so they're not quite as thick. They're thinner and fabric covered on the edges. So there you go, that's tool number 2. Okay, tool number 3. Tool number 3 is what I use on my cutting table, not my ironing table, but my cutting table. I use a galvanized steel sheet underneath my cutting mat. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but, well, I'll tell you why now, actually. Because that way I can use magnets to hold down things like fabrics, to cut them, or just to hold them in place, right? Like that. So the galvanized steel is underneath the cutting mat, and the magnets are holding it in place. Okay, I'll tell you more about the magnets later. Let me show you this sheet, show you exactly what it is. So this is obviously a cutting mat, and then this is the sheet. It's very, very thin, and it's called galvanized. Let's see exactly what it's called. It's called flashing, galvanized steel flat sheet of flashing, and it's 30 gauge. Let's see, home improvement store is where you get it, and it runs about 30 US$ for a 3x4 sheet. So I have 2 of them under my cutting mat. I have a really gigantic cutting mat, and I put them underneath that. So when I go to cut out, not just quilt patterns, but when I go out, especially when I cut out clothing patterns, I don't have to pin them. I don't have to pin the pattern to the fabric. I just lay the fabric down, lay the pattern on top of it, and then say this is the fabric, okay, and this is the pattern piece, and I just put my magnet down and I rotary cut around the pattern piece. So I don't have to pin anything when I do that, okay? So that's the why to use. It just basically acts as a 3rd and 4th hand, which is wonderful. Tool number 4 is magnets. I love magnets. Now, craft stores do sell magnets, and you can get them in different sizes, but I wouldn't buy the ones necessarily in the sewing department. Go over to the where they sell, gosh, I don't know, craft supplies. They have a whole section with just magnets. Okay, that's where you want to get your magnets. If not, you can get them at anywhere, home improvement store. I got these at Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight is a wonderful place to shop for craft supplies. So anyway, these magnets are the short ones. These are ceramic, and they had a hole in them, and so I put a doorknob on there. I covered them in fabric and put a doorknob on there, so they're cute too, and they work great. And then the other ones you can get at Harbor Freight, even an automotive store, you can get these. See if I can get these apart. So last thing about the magnets is, these are the ceramic ones. I told you that, and they're small and lightweight. These are the ones that I get at Harbor Freight. They are a little heavier, and they're extremely strong, extremely strong. So they can go through a lot of layers of fabric. They can hold a lot of layers of fabric down. You can also get them at the automotive store. They're originally for putting on the wall and putting your metal tools. Let's see if this will work. Nope. Putting your metal tools on there and hanging them up, right? But I use them, I put knobs on them and use them to hold things down so I can cut. The long ones are $5 each at Harbor Freight. Okay, on to tool number 5. Tool number 5 works with tool number 3, the flashing. Tool number 5 is magnetic pin holders, straight pin holders. Now, when you do have to pin something, these are great because they attach to your metal underneath your board, okay? But you can buy these at the craft store and the sewing store and the quilt shop, and they're a little pricey. Not terribly bad, but a little pricey. But these actually have stronger magnets. Oh my goodness. Okay. These have stronger magnets, and they are sold at Harbor Freight and at auto parts stores, and they stick. They really stick well. Now, the reason I'm using 2, and I wanted to share that with you, is that I keep one of these on my table, stuck to my table. It's a magnet. And then I use the other one at my sewing, where my sewing machine is. And that way, when I pin things here, and then I go over and sew them, I'm taking the pins out, right? Well, this one will fill up, this one will empty, and then I just switch them. So I always have 2 of these. And these, the silver ones, come in, this is the smallest one. It's about, I don't know, what is it, 4 inches? Yeah, this is the 4-inch. You can get them 5, 6, however big you want. And the pins just stay in them. They're awesome. These are okay. They're just more expensive. And they're pretty, but, you know, whatever. I like these better. That's tool number 5. Tool number 6 is a very small tool, but it's also what I think to be one of the most indispensable tools that I use. It is these little clamps. They're called hemostats. And you can get them in all different shapes and sizes. These are straight and kind of large. These have a bent tip to them, and they're kind of small, but they lock back here. They lock in place. So you can use them for things like turning tubes for clothing and for bags, things like that. You can use them for stuffing stuffed animals. Oh my goodness, getting into very small places with them. I also use them when I'm sewing on the sewing machine to get in there and hold things where I really wouldn't want to put my fingers. So if, you know, the needle hits one of these, then it breaks the needle, but if it hits my finger, that would be bad. So I use it to hold things together, to, you know, nudge things around, that type of thing. They also hang on the pegboard, which is great. Hemostats are also great to use when you're removing paper from the back of your foundation paper pieced blocks. You can use it to get into the little tiny crevices and pull out the paper. If you don't know how to do foundation paper piecing, you can see the link below. We have a tutorial on how to do that. It's quite a lot of fun, and these really help to remove the paper from the back. The last thing I wanted to tell you is you can get these at Harbor Freight or anywhere, also at an auto supply store, and they're about $4 a piece, and they go up from there depending on what size you want. They come in all different sizes. Okay, tool number 7. Tool number 7 is double-sided tape. Double-sided tape is very useful in the sewing room. You can use it to stick fabrics together instead of using pins. You can use it to stick fabrics that are not necessarily fabrics, like vinyl, to other things, and to be able to sew them through the machine, because with vinyl you can't put pins in because you would make holes. So I pin by using the double-sided tape and then sew. One thing you want to be careful with the double-sided tape is that you don't sew through it too much with your needle on your machine. So it comes in different sizes, all right? And so I usually choose the size to use based on my seam allowance, because I want to make sure that I'm not stitching through the tape over and over and over, because it will gum up your needle and it'll make you skip stitches, things like that. So you want to stick with one that's more narrow than your seam allowance, which means I usually use the 1/8 inch and the 1/4 inch. And you can get these on Amazon. You can get them at, which we'll have a link below for you to those, but you can also get them at office supply stores, that type of thing. So they're really, really useful for sticking things together to sew through, so you don't have to use pins. Okay, tool number 8. Tool number 8 is also a tape, but it is not double-sided. It's lint roller. Lint rollers are awesome. I use them I use them every day to roll off my ironing board, especially my ironing board cover. I have 1 dog and 3 cats, so they are not allowed up there, but you know how stuff flies through the air. So I use them for that, for getting pet hair and dust, whatever, off of my table before I lay my pieces down to work on. They're also really, really useful for when you rip out stitches, which we all have to do from time to time. You can use them to pull up the threads once you've cut them. So you can use a seam ripper, and cut your seam, cut your threads, and then just roll this across the top and pull out all the threads instead of having to pick them out one at a time. So that's what they're really useful for. I buy the handle, and I don't know, it comes with 2 rolls or something on Amazon, and there's a link to everything I'm talking about. There will be links down below for you, whether it's Amazon or not. But when I get low on these rollers, I just buy these replacement guys right here and just add them. I use this every day on all kinds of things. So that is an indispensable tool in my sewing area. Tool number 9 is a very simple one. You probably have it in your kitchen already. It is freezer paper. Freezer paper is really good for ironing on to the back of your fabrics. The wax on freezer paper will melt just a little bit and it will stick to the back of your fabric. And then you can pull this out. And then it stabilizes the fabric, okay? So you can iron it onto the back of your fabric. Let's see if I can get this open. Okay. So let's say that you're doing a wedding quilt and you need signatures on the quilt of all the guests, okay? So you can actually iron it onto the back of some muslin fabric and cut them into squares, put them out at the wedding. People can sign on them. And then when you're ready to put the quilt together, you just peel the freezer paper, not wax paper, the freezer paper off the back. And then you can stitch the squares together. So it works really good for that. It also works well for needle turn applique. I don't have a tutorial on that right now, but I hope to have one soon. That is a way that you do your applique by turning under the edges. And if you iron the freezer paper to the back, even to the front, it will give you a guide as to where to turn the fabric under, and then when you're done with it, you just peel it off. So it works really well for anything that you need stabilized, fabrics that you need stabilized for just a little while. and then you can peel it off of the back or the front, either way. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. We've made it to tool number 10, and tool number 10 is last, but it's certainly not the least tool. This tool is mason jars. Mason jars come in all sizes, all kinds of shapes and sizes. They're awesome, and you can store things in them so that you can see them. So in this one I have straight pins and bobbins and different bobbins for a different machine, and even more bobbins. You can even store things like M&Ms, which is awesome in your sewing room. But you can see these are just canning jars. This one I have an actual canning lid. This was a lid I used on something that I canned, so I just reused it in my sewing room. These do not come from craft stores, although you can get them from craft stores, but they're probably not going to be authentic mason jars. But anyway, I love mason jars because I can look up on a shelf and see what's up there, and it also keeps it dust free, which is great. So yeah, that is tip number 10. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video, and I hope that one of these tools maybe you haven't seen before, or maybe you hadn't thought of using, and maybe that will help you in your sewing room. Leave us a comment if it does. If you have any other tools that you use that maybe I don't know about, that'd be great. I'd love to know some more to make my sewing room more efficient. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click the button below. That really helps out the channel. And until next time, we'll see you later.